Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to do the visualize data with the Scatterplot Graph from FreeCodeCamp. As you can see, here is the graph and I have a tooltip in the left side. Now let's head over to FreeCodeCamp to see the specifications. I have some user stories to complete. I can see performance time visualized in the Scatterplot Graph, and I can mouse over upload to see tooltip with additional details. Now if I hit the JSON file, I have some more details that we're going to use in our tooltip. The JSON file is pretty big, but that's okay, we can handle it. So now I think that we are ready to start writing in Codepen. You don't have to use Codepen, but here you'll see that I'm using it. In the HTML part, I've already written these 4 lines. I have an ID with Scatterplot, and then a header with the title and the subtitle. Now as for CSS, you'll see that I have a body with background color light gray, and then for the headers and the paragraph I'm also using text align center. Now if you hit the CSS, you'll see that I'm using Bootstrap, but that's not necessary, you don't have to do this, it still will be working fine. But in the JavaScript you'll have to use the library D3.js and the jQuery. I'm using the 3rd version of D3, whereas the newest one is the 4th version, but there are some differences, so I would advise you, if you want to follow me, to use the 3rd version also. So now we are ready to start writing the CSS. I will start with the ID, Scatterplot stats and text align center, and I will continue with axis, fill none, and stroke. I will have a color 3A, 3A, 3A. As for axis text, I'm going to fill with black and the stroke will be none. Then I'm going to have a circle with stroke. It will be the same, like 3A, 3A, and 3A. And I'm going to have another class, cyclist, and in there I'm going to have a circle, hover, with the cursor to pointer. The last class will be the tooltip. This class I think is the most important one. I'm going to start with a position absolute, a padding 5 pixel, box sizing will be border box, a background color of white and a color of black. Maybe everything isn't very visible here, so we'll leave a link in the description box and you can follow me through Codepen so you can find the code there. In the JavaScript part, I'm going to start writing a function. If you want to close the function, use the parentheses here. I'm going to try another style, and I'm not going to use the parentheses in the end, so you will not be able to see the result in the right part of Codepen. So we will write everything, and in the end, and only in the end, I'm going to add the parentheses. I know that this is a weird way to write in code, but I wanted to try it like this. Anyway, that's up to you. Once again, if you want to see the result, just close the parentheses from the function. So I've already written the margin, the height, and the ft. The JavaScript section starts, and the first thing that happens is that we set the size of the area that you are going to use for the chart and the margins. The next section declares the functions linear and scale. So we have the y and the x, and then the function scale, linear and range, or time, scale and range. Then we have the declarations for our 2 axes, which are relatively simple. Sorry. With the variable x-axis, we're going to show the data under the x line. So you will have d3.svg.axis.scalex, and the orientation will be bottom. And then I'm going to have the ticks d3.time.seconds with 30. And I'm going to do something similar for the y-axis. Only this time the orientation will be left. The next block of code selects the ID Scatterplot stats on the web page and appends an SVG object to it of the size that you have set up with our width, height and margins. So I have a variable SVG which equals to d3.select Scatterplot stats and appends the SVG. I'm going to have the two attributes, one for height and one for width. The height is height plus margin top plus margin bottom, whereas the width is width plus margin left and margin right. Once again, if you want to see the result, just close the parentheses. Let's continue with appending the rectangular or the rect. I'm going to have again two attributes for the width and the height, and the properties are the same, so you can just copy and paste them. It's width plus margin dot left plus margin right, and height plus margin top, margin dot bottom. Then I'm going to have two other attributes with x and y, and this time there will be 0. Two more attributes with fill, which is going to be white, and the fill opacity with 0.8. Great! Now we also add a G element that provides a reference point for adding our axes. So we're going to have an SVG, which equals an SVG.append G, attribute, transform, and translate with margin, margin.left, plus margin. This is a weird kind to write things, but yeah. So we'll have a margin top. Alright, now we're going to declare the tooltip. Or maybe first let's write the topping. If topping alliance, make the circle red, else make it orange. And you can see the topping from the JSON file. Now this function is like a mouse over that we also saw before in our previous video. Sorry for the email. Alright. So show tooltip has two parameters, the D and I, and the tooltip style is height 125 pixels, width 200 pixels, and then opacity is 0.9. Great. Now I have a variable circle which equals to d3.event.target, and another variable which is tip padding and equals 5, and tip size which equals to dx parse int tooltip.style, and inside the parentheses width, and the same for the y-axis, so we have parse int tooltip.style, and inside the parentheses we have height. Great. Now once again I need the tooltip.style, open parentheses and brackets, and then I'm going to have a top with d3.event.pagey minus tip size.dy minus 5 plus the pixels. and something similar for left with D3.event fades y minus chip size .dx minus 5 plus pixel. Alright, let me fix everything here. And you're going to continue with the HTML part. It can be quite tricky to write HTML inside the JavaScript, so you'll have to be very careful. I have a span that will close in the end and a B for bold. And inside there we have d.name and d.nationality. We are going to change the line with the BR attribute and continue with the place. So I need d.place and the time, so I need d.time. Once again, we're going to go to another line and have the year. Alright. So now I'm going to add the year with d.year, and I'm going to break the line. Maybe 2 times will be better. And I'm going to close the tooltip with the doping, which is d.doping. And now I'm ready to close the bold and the span that I opened in this beginning of the HTML. Once again, close the function with parentheses and you will see the result in the right part of Codepen. But here I'm going to continue with a function that's like a mouse out that we seen in our previous video too. If we mouse out, then the tooltip will be hidden. So you have a function with the name hide tooltip and di. The tooltip.style have once again the same parameters with height, width and opacity, but now everything is in 0. As for the openhendrik function, this is like the click or on click. So if we click in the circle, we are transferring to another site, and then I'm going to show you an example with this. So inside there I'm going to have an if with d_url, open the brackets, and var win equals window.open, and I'm going to have it in a blank page, and it will focus there, so it will open automatically. Now the D3.json takes the variable URL and 2 more parameters. If we have an error, then we will throw it, or else map the time data in the horizontal axis and the rank position in the vertical axis. So that's what our function is going to be doing. I've already written the error part, so now let's see the else part. I'm going to have 2 variables, the fastest and the slowest. For the fastest, it's d3.mean, data.map, and inside there I'm going to have an item, and the function will return the ft.parse, and inside the parentheses item.time. We need something similar for the slowest. And then let's continue with the x and y domain. The x will have the slowest and the fastest, whereas the domain will have 1 and d3.max data with d, and the function will return the d.place plus 1. Now we are going to add a G element that provides a reference point for adding our axes. So I need an svg.appendG and then an attribute class, an x-axis, and an attribute to transform and translate the height. Also, this line of code with attribute transform and translate. It's similar all over the code and we're going to use it later too. Alright, now it's time to call the x-axis and append a text. So this line will add the text to the axis. And once again, if you want to see the result, just close the parentheses in the end of this function. So, now that we added the text, and we have the transform and translate with the width this time, the previous time was with height. And we're going to add the -30 property. So this is for visibility reasons, so you can see everything quite more clear. Now as for the attributes, I'm going to have a dy with 1.atm and another attribute with text anchor and end. Then I'm going to have a text with race time for 13.8 kilometers. And this line is going to be shown in the bottom of the graph. And so now I think that I'm going to do the same for the y-axis. First append the g element and the attribute will be class and x-axis. Call the y-axis and append the text. Then we're going to have some attributes for transform and rotate -90, and the text will be rank. Okay. Now, we add the cyclist to our scatter plot, and the next block of code creates the cyclist with the select all.cyclist and associate each of them with the data set, which will be our data and inside the parentheses data. We then append a circle with values for x and y position and height and width as configured in our earlier code. In the end, we are going to parse the time and the place. So I've already written the variable cyclist with the SVG, which selects all the cyclist. And it will have to return the place. Great. Now I need something similar for the x2. I'm going to have the cyclist with append and circle, and then an attribute with cx and t, which will return the x ft.parse and inside the parentheses the time, another attribute with cy, just let me fix this so it can be more readable, and continue with the y. Y once again will be returning the place, and then another attribute with r. R singular stands for radius, so it will be 5, and the field will return the doping. So here it's like calling the function that we wrote before. But now let's call 3 more functions that are really important for our graph. The first one will be mouse over, and it's the show tooltip. The next one is mouse out with hide tooltip. And last but not least, I'm going to have the click with openhendrik. Okay. Now let's continue. The next thing that we're going to write is how to append the text and fix the distance between the circles and the names. If you want to see the result, if you want to see the names and the text, just close the parentheses, and I'm going to close it in the end of this video, so then and only then you will be able to see the results. I know that this is a weird way to write your code, but I thought that I could try it like this. Maybe the next time I will be written more normal and closing the parentheses or seeing the results. Okay. So for the text, we return the time, and then we return the place, and in the end, the text will be returning the name. Now I'm going to need some explanatory text, and I'm going to put it in the right bottom. So let's write this. I have a variable with the name is dot, and an SVG that appends the G element. The attribute with transform and translate, and this time has a width of -150, and then I'm going to have a height with -100. Then I'm going to append the text. I'm going to have two attributes, x and y. The x will be 10 and the minus will be 5. Alright, the fill will be red, and then the text will be simple, adopting alliance. Okay. Now let's continue with the other variable, is not dot, which equals to svg.append g, and pretty much everything is the same, but here we will have the text with no doping alliance. And maybe I could also change the attribute to orange. Okay. Now let's find out what we have done. I'm going to end the else here. This is just a comment. And now, okay, let's see what we have here. I close the parentheses as you just saw, and I have to fix this because it doesn't look good. As I mentioned before, it has to be in the bottom right corner of our graph. So let's change the variable dot. I think there are some mistakes. Yes, the transform is written wrong. Alright, now let's check it one more time. And the tooltip isn't visible. I can click on the circles, but I want to see the tooltip also. And I think that I forgot to read the declaration. So I'm going to have a var with tooltip, it's very simple, and I'm going to select the Scatterplot. So just copy and paste it. And then I'm going to append the div. And last but not least, I'm going to have the attribute with a class and the tooltip. Now I think that we are ready. Let's check it one more time. Okay, now everything is visible. Yay! So let's see it in full screen. And I hope you guys really like this video. I'm going to leave the code in the description box, but thank you very much for watching and have a great day. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below.